All right, let's start with the nation. Legal giants knock Emefiele. I was going to call him Epiefele for disrespecting Supreme Court. Tinubu will deliver as president, Buhari tells supporters at Imo rally. Lifts UAE visa ban on Nigerians. Enemy demand to rise. So energy demand to rise, says NNPCL. And NACON to screen airlines for Hajj operations. All right, so which story are we starting with in the nation?
Should we start with NACON?
Okay, please.
Go ahead.
NACON is the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, and they're already in full gear for the 2023 Hajj, which I'm hoping to be on. And they have been to, according to the chairperson, they've been to Saudi already. They are doing the pre-Hajj visits. They are doing screening for service providers. They've also given slots to the 36 states across the country. They also have given 95,000 seats have been given to NACON, which is for the Hajj, which they have already distributed among 36 states. And all the full year plans are on. And I found out yesterday that for the Hajj this year, at least in the minimum, you spend 3 million for Hajj. I compared it to what my parents spent in 2000 for their first Hajj. But again, we're working hard.
You have the money, Nima.
All right, let me take the major headlines. So many of the legal luminaries have condemned Emefiele for disrespecting the Supreme Court order that February 10th deadline should be lifted. According to one of them, Professor Sagi was saying that Emefiele's attitude towards the subsisting order was highly contemptuous, and he was not alone. So many other legal luminaries, such as Chief Ajibola Aribisala, Mr. Hamed Raji, and others had also condemned him. Particularly, Emefiele was saying that there is no need for extension of the February 10th deadline for the old notes because they've already stopped being legal tenders. So there's no need to consider any shift from the deadline of February 10th. That means that he's totally, deliberately disobeying the Supreme Court order. Now, the federal government has said they will not say anything until after today's ruling because the Supreme Court will be hearing CBN's counter suit today. And they're going to say that, according to Malam Garba Shehu, he said that we wish to state that it is not true that the federal government or the CBN have taken a preemptive action on the legality of currency as a legal tender in view of the pending case before the Supreme Court. So hopefully we can hear categorically from the federal government today. But Emefiele or Epiefele is insisting, he's calling it Epiefele is insisting that he would not obey Nigeria's Supreme Court order because he is above the law.
Wow.
That's the
and that is
part.
where
so
legal
the
luminaries
EFCC chairperson is presently in contempt of court, is refusing to obey court orders. The CBN governor is beyond the Supreme Court of the country.
Wow.
Under the watch of the president, this abuse of rule of law is normal. It's painful.
This is normal.
So President Muhammadu Buhari intervened in the diplomatic face-off between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates, which led to a visa ban on Nigeria wishing to travel to the Middle Eastern nation. We remember that happened in October, where they slammed the blanket visa ban on Nigerians traveling, even excluding those who have their diplomatic passports. But they said the UAE did not specify the reasons for the decision, but some people were suspecting that because Nigerians have been misbehaving in their country, and that's why it happened. So in a telephone conversation on Monday, the president spoke to the UAE counterpart Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who I think lost his mother-in-law. And in that statement, while he was, commiserating with him, he reminded him that they have to strengthen their relations as a country. They've had very interesting relations, especially with businesses and the economy, and it was time for them to look into the visa ban and see how they can lift it for Nigerians. They also said that they're going to support them. If any Nigerian misbehaves in their country, they'll go through the judicial process, but it's time to lift the ban. So hopefully Nigerians may be able to travel to the UAE very soon.
Okay, so I have a story. At the 7th Sub-Saharan Africa International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference, SIPEC, that was held in Lagos, we had the group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, talking about the expected increase, and he put it between 30 to 35% increase for demand, for energy demand in Nigeria and across Africa. And this is because we're going to see, because of a projected increase in population and industrialization. In talking about it, also mentioned that, you know, following the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, the act is providing a lot of clarity in governance and also what the host community benefits, the host communities that crude oil exploration happens benefits. And then he also says that as we're restructuring here in Nigeria, ironically, it's also the same time where, you know, globally, we're looking at different forms of types of energy, more sustainable forms of energy and investment in that regard. And so asking Nigerians and all those who are investing in that sector to look, you know, towards the future and see how we can invest in that and capitalize on the investment in technology as well.
The Punch, Naira crisis worsens. NYSC warns corpers against crime as orientation ends. Trapped earthquake victims cry for help. Deaths now 41,200. That's in Turkey. Lagos pastor bags life imprisonment for impregnating 2 sisters. Contempt, EFCC kicks as CSOs demand Bawa's removal. Expulsion, Nnamani sues PDP, IU restates backing Tinubu. Revenue Commission to review politicians' salary. And U-turn, INEC to keep sensitive election materials with CBN. Okay, which story are we starting with?
Let me take the human interest story. So an Ikeja High Court has sentenced a 51-year-old pastor, Nduka Anyanwu, to life imprisonment for defiling 2 teenage sisters. So the story is he is a pastor and he's befriended a churchgoer. And this man has 2 daughters. At the time of the defilement, she was about 15 when he introduced her to the pastor. And the story that was corroborated by the father and the pastor is that she was handed over to him by the father as a wife. And also, he had promised that he would send that child abroad. She's 17 now, so this happened 2 years before. And then eventually, whatever, she had a child for him. Then her younger sister, who is 15 now, but 13 at the time, he defiled her as well. The parents were shocked to find out that he had also defiled the second one. Meanwhile, they had willingly given the child, the 15-year-old to him. The court has sentenced him to life imprisonment, but also said that the police failed in their duty for not arresting, for the parents, because it's purely parental negligence.
Child trafficking also.
Yes. But the father also is guilty of, you know, aiding the defilement of his daughter. Yeah. He should not be free.
At all.
Together.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have the story from Syria, from Turkey and Syria. So, according to the reports in the Punch, the death toll has gone up from 32 yesterday to 41,200 today. And they said that emergency rescue operatives are hearing voices underground. Yeah. They were able to rescue a woman yesterday in a region, a 35-year-old woman who had been buried for 205 hours. And they keep hearing voices. People around are saying they can hear voices under the rubble, but they can't reach those ones. UNICEF is saying that they fear that the death toll for children will increase because in that area, they have over 10 million children on the Turkey side, about 2.5 million children on the Syria side. And so they're looking that children will be more affected by this.
They haven't found those children.
They've not found. So they're expecting that for children, death toll number will continue to increase. Because originally, before the quake, they had 10 million on the Turkey side and 2.5 million children on the Syria side.
It's one of the most painful disasters.
Painful, very painful. But they were able to rescue a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old, 2 brothers yesterday also. They're still working hard, but you know, they need a miracle if they would save more lives.
All right, let's gonna move on now to Daily Sun. Elections under threat, INEC warns. Old Naira notes no longer legal tender, says CBN. Southeast should ignore call for election boycott, says Obioha. EFCC CSOs kick against attacks as anti-graft groups petition National Assembly against Bawa. G5 court extends order barring PDP from suspending Wike. Policy somersault impeded Nigeria's quest for its own satellite, says Obasanjo. And Atiku Tinubu unveiled plans for Southeast zone to benefit more voting, says PDP. Okay.
Okay, I'll take cashless policy may truncate conduct of polls. This is INEC talking. So with barely 11 days to our general elections, INEC, the FCT Resident Electoral Commission, Yahaya Bello, said that that as we know that as they are seated here, 99% of us are affected by the cashless policy. So he's talking about the FCT. He says INEC is also affected. We have over 2 million polling units. And before the elections, we're going to employ services of vehicle providers. And we have a lot of meetings with NURTW. We also brought in maritime workers. We have more than 12,000 adult staff in the FCT. And we're going to give them cash, food, and none of them will take check. None of them will accept transfer. There are 12,000 people that will require 5,000 each on Friday night. And then also these people are going to transport our materials and the security at polling units. Anyway, he's saying all this. And you cannot expect to give these people 5,000 naira and then they'll go to the POS to withdraw cash and pay 1,000 naira on it. So this is not affecting just, you know, a few of them. It's affecting the whole logistics of it. And he says that this is not just the FCT, but nationwide. And, well, I guess they would hear what Epeifele said today and what he decided to do.
Okay, so the EFCC, EFCC along with 30 other civil society groups have alleged that all the protests that's happening around Lagos and all of that is sponsored. And they even went as far in the Sun to mention that it was sponsored by elements of the Kogi state government following the arrest and ongoing prosecution of the relative of the governor, Yahaya Bello. They say that they are pushing with those protests to force the EFCC chairman to vacate office or resign. And that the issue of the contempt of court was 3 years. It was a court, an order of the FCT, High Court, and that order was 3 years before the appointment of Bawa as chairman, and that it's a quasi-criminal process, and it must be served on the person, and it has not been served on the FCC chairman. This also, in this report also, they quoted the spokesperson of the FCC, Wilson Ujare, who insisted that it was all sponsored. They are not going to vacate office. I know the FCC has a plethora of SANs on their side who can tell them what is necessary to be done if the FCC chairman truly is in contempt of any court. If the office of that is presently holding is also in contempt of court, they must also establish that rule of law follows a certain pattern. They must not come and be joining issues. You know, in Nigeria, when you're in office, you say, no, it's my detractors. Let us see the rule of law go, just as we're asking of the CBN government.
You know, I've been wondering because he's being called, like this is almost the second court case, right? And I'm wondering if he's going around Nigeria doing his business, can someone sit in for him? Can his lawyer be there for him? In his place? Or must he...
If he insists on showing up as a key witness himself, he must show up.
Sure. So a former chieftain of National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, Ralph Obioha, has called on the Southeast to vote and ignore those calling for election boycotts. He said, contrary to speculations, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party has the backing of Igbo elders. And it's not like they just picked him because he's from an Igbo extraction. They took their time and waited till they were sure that he was a man that they would back. That the only thing they see now that might dissuade a lot of people from coming out to participate in the general elections is the fact that there's an aspect of IPOB, a disaffected aspect of IPOB that is, telling people to boycott the elections. But they know that the mainstream IPOB are not interested in people boycotting the elections. They need people to come out and vote for the person they want to vote for. And so the government has to do something about those sections or those factions of IPOB that are insisting that people must boycott the election so that we can have a free and fair election and Igbo people can come out and vote for the person that they believe in.
So the former governor of Enugu State, Senator Chimaroke Nnamani, has sued the PDP over the disciplinary actions against him for his alleged anti-party activities, according to the suit that was filed before the Federal High Court in Abuja. He was saying that they said that the PDP had alleged that he had anti-party activities because he had declared for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of course, that is not anti-party activities. But he was saying that he was not just extolling what Tinubu had done, but saying that he was actually filing that suit to get them to reverse he's been suspended or expelled from the PDP. Okay, moving on now very quickly to Vanguard.
What happened to the G5 if they expel him? I mean, G5 is some...
With no need extending deadline for old news, says CBN. Buhari 6 end to blanket visa ban on UAE. Polls, we oppose interim national government, says Afenifere. Fani Kayode, watch your utterances. DSS warns political parties. And Naira swap, cash crunch takes toll on small businesses. Nima, did you take that? Which story are we taking?
The Department of State Services, DSS, has asked political parties to apply restraint in their utterances prior to and after the general elections. They gave the warning yesterday in a statement by the spokesperson, Peter Afunaya, hours after the Minister of Aviation and Director of New Media in APC, Presidential Campaign Council, Femi Fani Kayode, was questioned over the tweets that he made. And they said that in the tweet, he alleged that the presidential candidate of the PDP met with some army generals. So they had called him to have, comments from him and question him on that comment. And they're advising that we must be very careful in making comments to avoid violence. We must not incite the populace with all of our comments. They had, granted him bail, but he's still under their watchful eye, and they're going to be calling him from time to time to question him some more. So this is more like a warning to everybody who believes that they have a stake, who will talk and people will listen. We need to be very careful this period, not to incite anyone or anything.
Okay, let me take Afenifere. Afenifere spokesperson, National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Jari Ajayi, was telling the president yesterday to resist any temptation to foist an interim national government on Nigerians. According to him, he was referencing what Governor El Rufai said recently, where he was saying that there were elements within the presidency who are trying to force an interim government on us because their own candidates is not in the race. Afenifere said that we are making this call because sacrifices we, alongside many other Nigerians, dead and alive, have made to ensure that we have civil rule should not be cut short by these intentions. Said that we've had 24 years of civil rule and 6 transitions between civilian administration, and we shouldn't have this disrupted by elements within the presidency that are trying to force an interim government. And this is all based on what El Rufai said recently, and we must be careful. Okay, moving on very quickly now to the Nigerian Tribune, our final paper for this morning. No need to extend February 10th deadline, says a PMFili. 7 killed, 9 houses burnt in Benue court clashes. Tinubu in Imo promises to continue APC's program.